I'm Evelyn Stone, 30, a software engineering director. It was Christmas Eve, and my $80,000 gift had bought me this: silence. My high-rise apartment, designed for maximum productivity, felt ironically cold. I was alone, staring at the muted Christmas lights. Exactly 1 week ago, I got the notice. Not a call, but a curt text from my mother, Pamela: Maldives trip cancelled. Family emergency. Refunds handled. $80,000, a luxury Christmas vacation, dismissed in fewer than 20 words. A good engineer always checks the source code for a lie. Was the trip really cancelled, or was my $80,000 Christmas celebration continuing without the person who paid for it? The Stones presented as the perfect suburban family, expensive cars, designer clothes, and always smiling for the camera. But behind the veneer, our home was a rigid hierarchy. Madison, the interior designer, was the golden child, artistic and agreeable. I was the difficult child, the engineer, too logical and too successful on my own terms. My relationship with my parents, Arthur and Pamela, was transactional from the start. They valued things they could show off, Madison's creative flair, or my executive title, but only if I used my success to serve them. I always felt compelled to buy their approval, like spending $80,000 on a dream vacation. They expected me to pay the price for the appearance of perfection, yet resented the quiet power my independence gave me. The Maldives trip was my final, expensive attempt to secure a place at the Stone family table. I kept trying to buy their love with bigger and better gifts. But what happens when the child they depend on finally decides the price of admission is too high? My role was simple: the family utility. I was the source of quick fixes, the guarantor for Madison's fluctuating design business, and the walking ATM. My father, Arthur, would only ask about my stock options, never my mental health. My success was their collateral, not my achievement. They bonded over shared history and emotional drama, areas where my logical, data-driven brain failed. I was perpetually the outsider, tolerated only because of my paycheck. I tried to bridge the gap with grand gestures, hence the $80,000 trip. I was trying to buy intimacy, something money could never purchase. I genuinely thought that trip, a physical journey away from their familiar suburban prison, would reset our dynamic. I desperately wanted to stop being the provider and just be their daughter. I spent $80,000 trying to buy a sense of belonging. But what if they saw the expensive trip not as a gift of love, but as an opportunity for the ultimate heist? I spent most of my college years in the library, not the social scene. While Madison chased interior design trends, I chased algorithms. Code became my sanctuary. Unlike my family, logic offered unconditional, predictable rewards. My laptop was my window to an independent life. I discovered that data wasn't just numbers, it was power. I learned to trace, analyze, and build systems where inputs and outputs were transparent. That was the seed, the moment I realized my true passion was not just tech, but using truth data to create irrefutable control over my own destiny. I had found my path, a fortress of logic the Stones couldn't breach. But how did my parents react when the difficult child finally found something she was truly good at? I tried to share my passion. I excitedly described my first successful API integration. My mother, Pamela, didn't look up from her wine glass. "Oh, Evelyn, coding is so technical. Why can't you just study something pretty like Madison?" Like colors, my father, Arthur, offered his pragmatic criticism. Software engineering? Is that scalable? Madison's design work is client-facing, that's where the real money and connections are. We don't need a basement coder, we need a social asset. Every dismissal was a piece of armor I quietly put on. They wanted a socialite, I would become a director. They wanted show, I would build structure. Their rejection didn't change my path. It just hardened my resolve to succeed on a scale they couldn't possibly comprehend. They thought my coding was a basement hobby, but I was quietly building a financial fortress. How far would I have to climb before my family finally acknowledged my success, or would I have to pay them for the privilege? While Madison posted photos of leisurely coffees and mood boards, I was locked in. My 20s were a blur of all-nighters, debugging complex codebases, and relentless self-improvement. I didn't network, I built. Every line of code was a rebuttal to my father's skepticism, a silent declaration of competence. My promotions weren't gifted, they were earned, based on irrefutable metrics. I became a director at 30, managing global teams, earning a salary the Stones couldn't fathom. The irony was sweet. The skill they dismissed as technical and unscalable turned out to be the ultimate source of wealth and stability. Yet, despite the six-figure salary, the underlying goal remained: to buy their respect. The $80,000 trip wasn't a reckless splurge, it was the largest, most carefully calculated bid for their love I had ever made. I had built my kingdom and offered them the crown jewel, $80,000 worth of luxury. But when the reward is finally offered, do toxic families accept the gift, or simply find a new way to minimize the achievement? I finally got the director title. I told them over a celebratory dinner I paid for. Pamela's response? She sighed and said, "That's lovely, dear, but Madison just finalized a contract with the Millers for their beach house remodel." "That's real influence," my sister Madison chimed in, smiling sweetly. "Yeah, Ev. My job is creative and visible. Yours is important, but nobody really knows what coding directors do. It's not exactly glamorous, is it?" They always framed my objective, high-paying success, as dull compared to Madison's subjective flair. That moment crystallized my strategy. Facts and titles wouldn't win them over. Only excessive provision would. That's why the Maldives trip had to be $80,000. It had to be irrefutably grand, leaving no room for comparison. It was my desperate final move. I paid the $80,000 hoping for validation. Did that staggering price tag finally buy me the Christmas I yearned for, or did it just fund the very moment of my ultimate humiliation? I was drowning in the silence, nursing a glass of expensive Cabernet. The $80,000 charge was still pending on my corporate card statement. I knew I should cancel it, but I felt paralyzed, clinging to the slim chance that Pamela was telling the truth about a cancellation. Then, a ping. It was Alex, a former team lead who had moved to the UK. He sent a video wishing me a Merry Christmas, showing off his modest but warm family gathering. He looked genuinely happy, surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally. "Happy holidays, Evelyn. You know, I don't miss the pressure of spending a fortune to impress people. True happiness is zero cost, right? Hope you're spending time with people who deserve you." His words, simple and direct, were a sudden, sharp clarity. The engineer in me snapped awake. Alex had provided the missing input. The cost of love should be zero. My $80,000 was never a gift of love. It was a transactional payment for the right to belong. And now, I had to confirm if the service had been delivered, or if I had simply been robbed. The Maldives trip wasn't a family vacation, it was data. And as a software engineering director, I knew exactly where to look to confirm my fears. The Cabernet was quickly forgotten. The emotional paralysis lifted, replaced by the calm, surgical focus of the director who handles critical system failures. I wasn't their daughter, I was the analyst. My personal dream wasn't love anymore, it was irrefutable data. My skills became my ally. I logged into the airline's website, checked the travel agent's portal, thanks to the initial booking email, and began tracing the $80,000 transaction trail. The flight cancellation notification Pamela sent me? I cross-referenced it against the actual airline data. The thrill of the hunt was pure, cold professionalism. Within minutes, the first red flag materialized. The primary booking status was listed as modified. Not cancelled. A significant change to the passenger manifest had occurred exactly 2 days after I paid the full amount. They thought I was an emotional wreck. They forgot I was a director, trained to bypass firewalls and analyze complex systems for vulnerabilities. My revenge story wasn't going to be tears, it was going to be an audit. My logical mind had found its most meaningful project yet. The booking wasn't cancelled, it was modified. What changes did they make to the manifest for the $80,000 trip, and where would I find the shocking evidence on Christmas Day? Christmas morning arrived, not with cheer, but with a cold, clear purpose. The modified flight status was the smoking gun. My emotional response was not tears, it was a detached, almost scientific fury. I realized this wasn't just betrayal, it was a complex data fraud, and I was going to QA their whole system. I immediately compiled all evidence: the original $80,000 corporate card payment records, the email thread, and the airline's modified manifest page. As a director, I knew the importance of the paper trail. Before they could notice the system vulnerability and delete the trail, I had secured the complete data log. I predicted the next, inevitable step of the narcissistic family: they would boast. They couldn't spend $80,000 of my money in the Maldives without showcasing the luxury they stole. So, I set a trap. I activated a script to monitor Madison's and Pamela's geotagged social media posts. My initial preparation was for a fun family vacation. My new preparation was for legal warfare. I spent the next hours researching local and international fraud laws related to large-scale, prepaid services. I was no longer a victim seeking comfort. I was a plaintiff building an irrefutable case using pure, cold evidence. The $80,000 was my leverage. I contacted my corporate card company, calmly reporting the transaction as services fraudulently misrepresented and modified. I used my executive title and secured an immediate hold, preventing them from benefiting fully from the money while I gathered proof. I had done all the preparation. Now, I just needed the irrefutable evidence that only their vanity could provide. I was waiting for the perfect Instagram post, the geotag that confirmed their sunny deception on the other side of the world. My betrayal was about to be confirmed. I had secured the money and built the legal case. But what shocking proof would Madison's Instagram feed provide on Christmas Day, and who exactly did they hire to replace me on the $80,000 trip? The script worked flawlessly. My phone glowed, pulling up a new Instagram post, geotagged, the Maldives, Christmas Day. My heart didn't break, it went utterly, terrifyingly cold. The image was Madison, sun-kissed, next to a festive palm tree. The $80,000 trip wasn't cancelled, it was stolen. But the real humiliation came in the second photo. My parents, Arthur and Pamela, were raising champagne flutes, celebrating. And standing where I should have been, next to Madison, was my cousin, Clara, a perpetually unemployed social asset they always favored for her charm. The caption was the final knife twist, courtesy of Pamela. So glad Clara could join our perfect Christmas after Evelyn's last-minute emergency kept her away. Couldn't imagine canceling this priceless family time. Hashtag Maldives Magic, hashtag Stone Family Love. They didn't just exclude me, they publicly manufactured a lie using my success and my money. In that moment, the final thread broke. I didn't feel sadness, or even anger. I felt the profound, silent stillness of a system administrator realizing the entire network is compromised. The daughter was gone. The software engineering director remained, and she was initiating full disaster recovery mode. This wasn't about $80,000 anymore. This was a violation of trust, a calculated fraud built on the backs of my desperate attempts for acceptance. My revenge would not be emotional, it would be total, systematic, and data-driven. I would dismantle their manufactured reputation, their business, and their financial security. The hours I spent securing the chargeback and compiling legal research were suddenly justified. My unique skill set, which they mocked as technical, was the perfect weapon. They gave me the motive, the method, and now, the irrefutable proof in a geotagged, public post. Arthur, Pamela, Madison, you wanted a perfect Christmas photo, and you used my money to frame it. You replaced me with a social asset. Fine. But you forgot one thing. The engineer always finds the exploit. And I was about to deploy a patch that would wipe out your entire system. They celebrated their theft in the Maldives while I finalized the legal coding in San Francisco. How exactly did a software engineering director use her unique skill set to turn a family vacation scam into a full-scale financial and public execution? Looking at the happy faces in the Maldives photo, a profound peace settled over me. It was the peace of final acceptance. The price of their love was too high, not $80,000, but my entire sense of self. I was never going to be accepted, I was only going to be exploited. The technical work began. I systematically deleted every family contact, blocked them across all platforms, and changed every shared password. It wasn't an angry outburst, it was a digital divorce, a clean severing of the network connection. There would be no communication, no excuses, no loop back. I canceled the automatic financial transfers that had been subsidizing Madison's design work for years. I revoked their access to my investment portfolio information. The family fund I used to casually contribute to? Account closed. The ATM was officially out of service. I had always sought their approval to validate my independence. Now, I found solace in the fact of my independence. I had built my $80,000 success on logic and data. That same logic now dictated I stand alone, without the burden of their neediness or their malice. My mission was redefined. It wasn't about teaching them a lesson, it was about protecting my system, my life, from external threats. My revenge was not spite, it was a security patch. I wasn't attacking, I was terminating fraudulent users and recovering my assets. My quiet apartment, which had felt ironically cold before, now felt like a fortified server room. I was alone, yes, but I was secure. I looked at the muted Christmas lights, and this time, I saw them not as a symbol of loneliness, but as a visual representation of the peaceful stillness that comes after a perfect code execution. I closed my laptop. My work was done. I wasn't waiting for an apology or a tearful call. I was waiting for the inevitable moment they realized their bank accounts and their social capital were crumbling. I walked away completely, knowing that the most powerful form of strength is self-sufficiency. The physical separation was complete. The financial recovery was underway. Now, it was time to move from defense to offense. They were enjoying the last day of their stolen luxury. I was preparing to deliver the most devastating, data-driven Christmas gift they would ever receive. They had their Christmas day in paradise. I had my clear, cold plan. What kind of data-driven gift does a highly competent software engineering director give to the family who stole her $80? 000 vacation? December 26th, Boxing Day. They were still sunbathing, oblivious that their entire support system was about to be DDoS attacked. I sat at my laptop, not with popcorn, but with a checklist. My revenge was a multi-stage deployment, and Phase 1 was initiated precisely at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. The first action was a full-scale financial lockdown. I sent the bank and the corporate card company my compiled evidence of fraud. Simultaneously, I used my IT knowledge to lock Pamela and Arthur out of every joint financial account they thought they still controlled. Access denied. Next, I activated the social phase. I didn't post anything myself. Instead, I sent my irrefutable, geotagged proof, the original $80. 000 itinerary versus the modified flight manifest, to the family group chat and a few key, gossipy family friends. The data spoke for itself. Madison's design business relied entirely on reputation and local wealthy clients. I used my skills to anonymously publish my findings, the financial fraud, the missing $80,000, and the public lie, on an industry-specific review board. Her professional reputation was instantly compromised. The first texts came in from the Maldives, not apologies, but panicky demands. Evelyn, what did you do to the accounts? The card is declined. Call us now. Their entitlement, even in crisis, was staggering. They couldn't believe their ATM had malfunctioned. I didn't call. I sent a single, final text response to Pamela, system error, fraudulent user detected. $80,000 recovered. Enjoy the beach. It was the most satisfying piece of code I had ever written. The full cost of the trip was now being held in escrow, awaiting legal proceedings. The true chaos was not the texts, but the silence from the extended family who saw the proof. The social damage was immediate and widespread. The Stone family's manufactured reputation, their most prized asset, was now publicly and irrefutably tagged as fraudulent. The system was finally clean. The Stone family system had crashed. But what happens when a narcissistic family, trapped on a remote island with no money, has to face the reality of coming home to a life they can no longer afford? After sending that final text, the adrenaline drain was immense. I felt numb, staring at the empty screen. The silence was different now, not paralyzing, but heavy. I had won the technical battle, but the human cost still resonated, a low, persistent frequency in my chest. The phone rang, an unexpected video call from Alex. He wasn't calling about the work script, he was calling about me. Hey, Evelyn. You look like you haven't slept since your last big server migration. Everything okay? Remember, it's okay to log off sometimes. For the first time, I couldn't hide behind a technical response. I briefly told him what happened, the trip, the lie, the stolen money. He listened without judgment, letting me speak the unvarnished truth. The simple act of telling a neutral third party felt like unplugging a faulty circuit. Evelyn, you didn't lose your family. You finally identified the malware and ejected it from your system. They weren't your family, they were simply a dependency. You chose survival and integrity over their toxic connection. That's not revenge, that's self-preservation. His words were the final patch I needed. They reframed the entire story. I hadn't destroyed my family, I had merely removed the vulnerability. Alex, sitting thousands of miles away, offering support without asking for payment or status, represented the true zero-cost love I finally understood. I actually smiled, a genuine, small smile for the first time in days. I guess I just executed the largest, most successful chargeback of my life. Alex chuckled. You got your money back, got your life back, and taught them a lesson. System reboot successful, he suggested grabbing coffee when he was next in San Francisco, a simple, non-transactional plan. That was the forward path. My emotional debt to the Stones was settled. The balance was zero, and my life was now free of their financial and emotional drag. I could finally build a life based on trust, not transactions. I had secured my future, but the Stones still had to face the inevitable. What happened when Arthur, Pamela, and Madison returned from their $80,000 paradise to find their entire lives, finances, and reputation had been systematically wiped clean? The revenge was executed perfectly. The $80,000 was refunded. Madison's design contracts evaporated due to the public fraud revelations. Arthur and Pamela faced an impossible uphill battle to regain financial footing. It was a technical and legal victory, a perfect 10-10 audit score. The silence in my life was deafening. No needy calls, no manipulative texts, no passive-aggressive comments about my career. The constant, toxic noise of the Stone family had finally ceased. I had secured a rare, profound peace. I was alone, yes, but finally free of the emotional drain. Yet, the taste of victory wasn't purely sweet. When the adrenaline faded, a small, hollow space remained. This was the void where a normal family, a loving connection, should have been. I had successfully burned the bridge, but standing alone on the other side, the vastness of the empty space was stark. I caught myself looking at an old photo, not of the last trip, but of a childhood birthday, before the toxicity fully set in. I realized I wasn't grieving the people they became, but the hope of the family I had always wished for. That hope was the true cost of the $80,000 transaction. My identity was no longer defined by my struggle for their acceptance. I was Evelyn, the director, the one who executed the chargeback, the one who chose integrity. I had finally achieved the true, independent path that they had tried so hard to deny me. I was a fortress, secure and self-sufficient. The most satisfying part wasn't the ruin I caused, it was the logic used to cause it. I showed them that the technical skill they ridiculed was the very thing that controlled their reality. Data is a ruthless master, and I was the one holding the keys. I proved that competence beats charisma every single time. The stones were a closed chapter, a system flaw I had debugged and patched. My next project wouldn't be about cleaning up their mess, it would be about building something entirely new, something based on the zero-cost connection I found with people like Alex. The future was unwritten, and that was the greatest victory. I had my peace, my money, and my self-respect. But what final, long-term lessons did the Stone family learn from the revenge of the daughter they dismissed as just technical? The Maldives scam was just the appetizer. As I gathered financial evidence for the fraud case, I realized I needed a deeper audit of the family's joint accounts, the ones I had funded for years. I executed a full financial discovery, using my professional resources to bypass their basic security. What I found was a hidden ledger within a small, nondescript savings account Arthur controlled. It wasn't the usual slush fund. This was a meticulously maintained log tracking every dime I had ever contributed to the family, labeled not as support but as Evelyn's debt. I traced the $80,000 back to its source, not a debt for the trip, but a transaction labeled final payment to Arthur. This revealed the chilling truth: Arthur and Pamela had never truly forgiven me for choosing tech over their expectations. They saw my success as their financial failure. Digging deeper, I found the real reason for their constant pressure. Arthur's investment firm, which he always bragged about, had been functionally bankrupt for nearly 5 years. They hadn't needed my money for Madison's flair, they needed it to prop up Arthur's crumbling facade and maintain their lavish lifestyle. I was not their daughter, I was their silent, high-yield investment vehicle. Every promotion, every raise, every act of generosity I showed was calculated by them to be the amortization of Arthur's spectacular failure. The $80,000 trip was the final withdrawal from the account they named Evelyn. Tucked into the ledger was a handwritten note from Pamela, dated 2 years ago. Evelyn is useful now. We must keep her close until we recover. Useful. The word was a dagger, confirming that their acceptance was conditional, transactional, and had an expiration date tied to their financial recovery. This discovery stripped away any lingering guilt. My revenge was not merely justified. It was an act of financial and psychological self-defense against people who viewed my existence as a balance sheet item. I had terminated a deeply malicious, long-term system exploit. My legal team had everything they needed. Not just evidence of fraud for the trip, but evidence of systematic financial manipulation over years. The public exposure I planned would now target Arthur's failing business and Madison's complicity in the whole scheme, ending their charade completely. I was not their daughter, I was their silent, high-yield investment vehicle. Every promotion, every raise, every act of generosity I showed was calculated by them to be the amortization of Arthur's spectacular failure. The $80,000 trip was the final withdrawal from the account they named Evelyn. Tucked into the ledger was a handwritten note from Pamela, dated 2 years ago. Evelyn is useful now. We must keep her close until we recover. Useful. The word was a dagger, confirming that their acceptance was conditional, transactional, and had an expiration date tied to their financial recovery. This discovery stripped away any lingering guilt. My revenge was not merely justified. It was an act of financial and psychological self-defense against people who viewed my existence as a balance sheet item. I had terminated a deeply malicious, long-term system exploit. My legal team had everything they needed. Not just evidence of fraud for the trip, but evidence of systematic financial manipulation over years. The public exposure I planned would now target Arthur's failing business and Madison's complicity in the whole scheme, ending their charade completely. I finally understood the meaning of peace. It wasn't the absence of conflict, it was the absence of their conflict. My mornings were mine again. No checking the news for family scandals, no anxious phone calls. Just the hum of my city and the quiet click of my coffee machine. The relief was physical. I was no longer weighted down by the invisible emotional debt they constantly charged against my success. I didn't have to perform, pretend, or pay to belong. The transaction was over. I was a sovereign entity, solely responsible for my own happiness. I spent an hour reading a book, a real book, not a corporate report. The simple, non-transactional act brought a quiet joy I hadn't realized I missed. I was rediscovering the parts of myself that the constant family management had forced me to archive. The pain was still a scar, but scars are evidence of survival. They are not weaknesses, they are features. I had taken the worst thing my family could do, steal my money and humiliate me, and turned it into the defining moment of my independence. My system was clean, debugged, and running on optimal integrity. My life was silent, peaceful, and mine. But what final, desperate attempt did the Stones make to recover the millions they had lost, and what was the lasting financial consequence of the engineer's perfect audit? The Stone family had finally returned from their ill-fated, $80,000 trip, and the silence was broken, not by their pleas, but by my lawyer's email. The subject line, Stone family response, motion to dismiss filed. They were fighting back, but their arguments were based on lies and denial. The new crisis for them wasn't emotional, it was entirely financial, and it was cascading. Arthur, trying to save face and fund his legal defense, made a huge, panicked move. He liquidated a significant portion of his failing investment firm's remaining assets, right before an audit. This desperate move was exactly what my legal team had predicted. The forced liquidation triggered a massive clawback by creditors and an investigation by regulatory bodies. The truth I found in Arthur's hidden ledger was now public record. The facade had not just cracked, it had imploded. Madison, still clinging to social media fame, attempted a damage control post claiming she was misrepresented. But the public had seen the receipts, the geotags, the modified flight manifest, and now the legal filings against her father. Her wealthy client base vanished overnight. Her crisis was a public shaming. Then came the single, final contact, Pamela's voice message. It wasn't an apology, it was a desperate, gaslighting plea. Evelyn, your father is sick with stress. This is destroying the family. Please, just call off the lawyers. We can talk about this like family. I listened to the voicemail twice. Not out of nostalgia, but as an analyst studying a faulty system's final error message. The words like family were the critical bug. My response was not emotional, it was a simple instruction to my lawyer: proceed with full discovery. No negotiation. The most visible consequence of their new crisis was the house. Their multi-million-dollar family home, the symbol of Arthur's success and their social status, was now listed as a distressed asset. The photos online confirmed the end of their lavish life. They had nothing left to sell, except the remnants of their pride. Justice wasn't me watching them suffer, justice was the inevitable consequence of their own choices. I hadn't destroyed them, I had merely pulled away the safety net, allowing the house of cards they built on fraud and entitlement to finally collapse under its own weight. I deleted Pamela's voicemail. No need to archive the malware. My future was now entirely my own, unburdened by their past failures or their manipulative demands. I was standing alone, stronger, wealthier, and far happier than I ever was trying to belong to them. I was free, and the stones were ruined. But what final, powerful lesson about transactional family love did the software director walk away with? And what advice do I have for anyone still trapped in a similar system? I listened to the voicemail twice. Not out of nostalgia, but as an analyst studying a faulty system's final error message. The words "like family" were the critical bug. My response was not emotional, it was a simple instruction to my lawyer: proceed with full discovery. No negotiation. The most visible consequence of their new crisis was the house. Their multi-million-dollar family home, the symbol of Arthur's success and their social status, was now listed as a distressed asset. The photos online confirmed the end of their lavish life. They had nothing left to sell, except the remnants of their pride. Justice wasn't me watching them suffer, justice was the inevitable consequence of their own choices. I hadn't destroyed them, I had merely pulled away the safety net, allowing the house of cards they built on fraud and entitlement to finally collapse under its own weight. I deleted Pamela's voicemail. No need to archive the malware. My future was now entirely my own, unburdened by their past failures or their manipulative demands. I was standing alone, stronger, wealthier, and far happier than I ever was trying to belong to them. I was free, and the stones were ruined. But what final, powerful lesson about transactional family love did the software director walk away with? And what advice do I have for anyone still trapped in a similar system? The case was settled, quietly. I recovered the $80,000 and the court ordered a long-term financial audit of the stones. For me, the true victory wasn't the money, it was the complete, conscious reboot of my life's operating system. No legacy code, no inherited bugs, just clean, self-authored logic. People often pity the person who cuts off family, assuming solitude is misery. But for me, solitude was safety. It was an empty room where no manipulative guest could walk in uninvited. I chose my peace over their noise, my truth over their fabricated reality. I started taking long walks, something I never allowed myself before. I walked in the sun, feeling the warmth, real warmth. Not the fake warmth of a conditional hug. I was truly living in my own time zone, not theirs. The final log entry in the Stone family file read, status, terminated. Cause, unrecoverable integrity breach. The emotional system I'd tried to fix was flawed by design. I realized that my $80,000 trip wasn't to the Maldives, it was the ticket to my own freedom. I learned to trust people who valued my competence, not my bank account. People like Alex, who gave advice freely. I started investing my time, not my money, in relationships that were built on mutual respect. That is the definition of a healthy, non-transactional system. And if you're watching this, trapped in a family that treats you like an ATM or a trophy, remember this: your technical skill, your independence, your logic, these are not flaws. They are your weapons. Your value is inherent. You don't need to pay for love. You just need the courage to terminate the contract. I closed the Stone family file forever. The revenge was complete, not because they suffered, but because I was finally, irrevocably free. I walked away, the software engineering director of my own destiny, running the cleanest, most efficient program of my life. And that brings us to the end of the Stone family's story. If you were Evelyn, what is the first clean, non-transactional decision you would make to celebrate your brand new, completely sovereign life? The Stones' legal fight crumbled quickly under the weight of financial evidence. But their strategy shifted from legal to psychological warfare. The first wave came not from Arthur, but from the extended family, the passive-aggressive chorus I thought I'd muted forever. The texts were coordinated. How could you do this to your own parents? It's Christmas, Evelyn. Blood is thicker than water. They weren't asking about the fraud, they were attacking my character for exposing it. They blamed the fire alarm, not the fire. The social narrative was insidious: successful daughter turns on aging parents. No one outside the audit cared about complex financial fraud, they cared about the simple. Emotional headline. They judged me for a lack of compassion, not for sound business defense. Pamela sent a final, lengthy email filled with toxic self-pity. She painted herself as a victim, claiming I was driven by greed and resentment. You ruined our legacy because you never accepted our love. This is your failure, Evelyn, not ours. The old Evelyn would have felt paralyzed by that guilt. The new Evelyn saw it for what it was, a desperate, final attempt at remote code execution. They were trying to install a psychological virus. But my firewall was up. The logic was clear. Their bankruptcy did not invalidate my integrity. My cousins, who benefited from the stone's superficial circle, posted veiled attacks online about bitter, materialistic people who put money before family. They leveraged the illusion of family unity, which was always the stone's greatest asset. Their emotional manipulation was powerful, but it dissolved against the simple, immutable reality of the hidden ledger and the court documents. Facts are stubborn. The truth about Arthur's secret bankruptcy and Pamela's Evelyn is useful. No, was the final barrier against their blame. I could have responded. I could have defended myself point by point, spending hours justifying my freedom. Instead, I chose the true path of control, absolute non-response. They were seeking a reaction to fuel their narrative. I denied them the fuel. The door was closed, locked, and welded shut. Losing the superficial approval of the extended family was the final, small tax I paid for my integrity. The cost was trivial compared to the years I spent sacrificing my peace for their validation. I traded a temporary, conditional family for permanent, unconditional self-respect. My real family were the chosen few, Alex, my legal team, and the colleagues who understood that loyalty is earned through action, not biology. They weren't blood, but they were the ones who showed up with unconditional support when the system crashed. The final piece of news was Arthur's forced sale of the family home, confirming the total collapse of their status. They blamed me for forcing the sale. I blamed them for stealing the $80,000 that triggered the audit that revealed their 5 years of lies. Cause and effect. They were trapped in the rubble of their narrative, still fighting the old war. I had moved on to the next project. I was secure, debt-free, and most importantly, free from their impossible standard. The battle was over, and the peace was total. I was finally at peace, but the stones were not. What final, poetic twist of fate did Arthur Stone face when he lost his house, and what ultimate financial lesson did his former software director daughter leave for the audience? While the extended family was busy condemning me, a different, smaller group of people was actively stepping up. These were the people who knew the difference between emotional rhetoric and ethical action. They didn't offer judgment, they offered unconditional support. Alex, sensing the social pressure, didn't ask about the lawsuit. Instead, he simply mailed me a box of the expensive, niche coffee beans I love. The note read, "Focus on the code. The noise is just bad feedback. Filter it out." His care was zero cost, high value. My engineering team, reading the thinly veiled attacks on social media, stood up for me professionally. My lead sent a message to the group chat, "Evelyn's integrity is the highest I've seen. Our success is built on her logic." Their loyalty was based on my performance, not my paternity. Even my lawyer, who had seen endless ugly family drama, became a source of detached support. "You are doing the right thing, Evelyn. They are trying to emotionally bankrupt you because they can't financially. Don't engage their system." His confidence was my anchor. While the extended family was busy condemning me, a different, smaller group of people was actively stepping up. These were the people who knew the difference between emotional rhetoric and ethical action. They didn't offer judgment, they offered unconditional support. Alex, sensing the social pressure, didn't ask about the lawsuit. Instead, he simply mailed me a box of the expensive, niche coffee beans I love. The note read, "Focus on the code. The noise is just bad feedback. Filter it out." His care was zero cost, high value. My engineering team, reading the thinly veiled attacks on social media, stood up for me professionally. My lead sent a message to the group chat, "Evelyn's integrity is the highest I've seen. Our success is built on her logic." Their loyalty was based on my performance, not my paternity. Even my lawyer, who had seen endless ugly family drama, became a source of detached support. "You are doing the right thing, Evelyn. They are trying to emotionally bankrupt you because they can't financially. Don't engage their system." His confidence was my anchor. The silence was no longer heavy, it was a canvas. 6 months after the final legal settlement, I realized the full scope of my freedom. I wasn't just recovering, I was innovating my life. I had taken the energy I used to spend on defense and poured it into growth. At work, the clarity I gained from the revenge audit made me a better leader. I implemented stricter integrity protocols for all my projects. I was promoted, a success built purely on merit, not on the hope of pleasing my parents. This success was mine, untainted. I took up sailing. It's the ultimate lesson in self-reliance and external forces. You cannot manipulate the wind or the waves, you can only master your response. This new perspective helped me anchor my emotional life in reality, not in the stone's fantasy. My relationship with Alex deepened. It was built on easy laughter and zero expectation. One night, he said, "Your parents were wrong, Evelyn. Your mind isn't too technical, it's perfectly honest." That single compliment was worth more than 100 fake hugs. I received the final report. Arthur and Pamela were forced to sell their mansion and relocate to a small apartment across the state. They were isolated, financially constrained, and still blaming me. Their story ended not with a bang, but with a quiet, irreversible downsizing. The most poetic detail, Arthur's forced liquidation was handled by the very audit firm I used for my chargeback. He had to pay the professionals who exposed his fraud. His greed had paid for his own downfall. The system I mastered had delivered the ultimate algorithmic justice. The $80,000 wasn't just cash, it was a tuition fee. I learned that financial boundaries are not aggressive, they are protective. And for anyone who thinks family means unconditional financial support, remember, a strong boundary is the only code that prevents a malicious takeover. I finally owned my power. The power wasn't in the revenge, it was in the word no. No to the guilt, no to the manipulation, and no to the lie that I owed them my life. Saying no to the toxic past was the only yes I needed for my future. If you are the black sheep, the smart one, the one who built your own system, own it. Stop seeking validation from the corrupted source code. Fork your life, rewrite the script, and run your program on maximum integrity. You are the software director of your own destiny. My story isn't about revenge, it's about reclamation. Reclamation of my money, my peace, and my identity. The stone chapter is permanently closed, and the new chapter is wide open, with a perfectly designed, secure, and beautiful architecture. The best code is the one you write yourself. And that brings us to the end of the Stone family's story. If you were Evelyn, what is the first clean, non-transactional decision you would make to celebrate your brand new, completely sovereign life? 1 year. The anniversary wasn't marked by celebration, but by a profound sense of settlement. Not the legal kind, but emotional. The old ties hadn't been violently cut, they had simply frayed from lack of genuine connection, eventually dissolving like bad code in a strong compiler. I found an old family photo while clearing a desk drawer, Arthur, Pamela, Madison, and me, smiling on a manufactured vacation. The smile on my face was a performance, the others were enjoying the show. I didn't feel anger, I felt like a museum curator observing an extinct social ritual. The sporadic, guilt-ridden messages from distant relatives finally stopped. They realized their emotional currency, shame and duty, no longer bought them a seat at my table. My non-engagement was the ultimate debugging process, isolating the failed function and permanently decommissioning it. I had lost a family, but I had gained absolute honesty. I no longer had to cross-reference their words with their bank accounts. The price of truth was the relationship itself. It was an expensive transaction, but the ROI, return on integrity, was infinite. Madison's career never recovered from the financial scandal. Without Arthur's money and social connections, her flair was exposed as pure marketing. Her social media went from lavish vacations to inspirational quotes. The illusion required capital, the truth required none. The cousins who condemned me found themselves cut off when Arthur could no longer fund their superficial lifestyle. They learned the hard way: the Stone family only loved those they could leverage. I, the outcast, became a prophet of their transactional nature. My final axiom: if the family system is based on an unverified assumption, unconditional love, but all actions are transactional, pay to belong, the system is fundamentally flawed. My revenge was correcting the ledger, not causing pain. The pain was their recognition of the truth. I now apply the same rigor to my personal life as I do to my projects. I vet relationships for integrity, build trust through verified action, and maintain clear boundaries. My new system is secure, scalable, and most importantly, free from the old exploit vectors. I took the old family photo and placed it in an envelope labeled Legacy Debt. It wasn't destroyed, it was archived, as a reminder of the $80,000 tuition fee. I knew, with perfect certainty, that I would never hear from them again, and that was the true reward. The greatest revenge is simply living well, living honestly, succeeding ethically, and building a network of true allies. The Stones lost everything trying to maintain a lie. I gained everything by simply insisting on the truth. The engineer wins by proving the integrity of her code. I stood up, walked to my sunlit window, and inhaled the clear, unpolluted air of my new life. The view was expansive. No more shadows, no more debts, just the clear, open horizon of a future I was entirely responsible for, and entirely happy with. I found my freedom by simply insisting on honesty. What single, actionable step can you take today to debug the toxic transactional code in your own family system? 18 months. The gap created by cutting off the Stones wasn't a void, it was a vast, open space for construction. I realized I didn't want to just manage code for a corporation, I wanted to build something that fundamentally prioritized integrity over profit. Alex and I co-founded Integrity Tech, a consulting firm dedicated to helping NGOs and startups build robust, fraud-proof accounting and data systems. Our mission statement was simple: verify all assumptions. Trust no input without validation. The $80,000 I recovered from Arthur didn't go into a vacation fund. It became the seed money for Integrity Tech. It was poetic. The money that funded the lie was now funding the truth. I was turning the debt of the past into the ethical capital of the future. Working with Alex wasn't work, it was collaboration built on mutual trust. He respected my technical rigor, I valued his emotional intelligence. We were a perfectly balanced system. He was the human interface, I was the core logic. Our partnership was the antithesis of my family. Arthur Stone cared about the illusion of a legacy, the name, the house, the superficial status. I cared about a real legacy, tangible good done through sound, honest systems. My new purpose was not to get revenge, but to prove that integrity always scales better than deceit. My attorney occasionally sends brief, unemotional updates. Arthur and Pamela are still living in that small apartment, still isolated, and still sending letters to their former social circle, attempting to rewrite history. They are trapped in an infinite loop of denial. I feel nothing but professional closure. True wealth isn't the number in the bank, it's the optionality. I have the option to wake up and work on a project I believe in, with people I trust, without fear of manipulation or sudden financial collapse. That freedom is the ultimate dividend of my revenge. My journey from exploited daughter to ethical entrepreneur taught me this: your personal code of ethics is your most valuable intellectual property. Guard it, protect it, and never allow anyone, especially family, to compromise it for a temporary gain. Looking back, the best part of the revenge wasn't the justice, it was the ability to walk away, fully funded and fully realized. I didn't need their permission to be successful. I just needed the courage to acknowledge their broken code and press the delete key. I pressed delete and started coding my own beautiful future. What is the most important piece of toxic legacy code you need to rewrite in your own life to build a system based on honesty? My journey wasn't unique. If you've been the black sheep, the financier, or the quiet fixer for a toxic family, you know the code is broken. Now, let's pivot from my story to yours. It's time to stop debugging their failures and start engineering your own success. First lesson: recognize the transactional nature. Love should be unconditional, financial support should not. If someone only validates you when you pay their bills or perform, that's not love, it's rent. Your integrity is too valuable to be leased out for temporary approval. Second lesson: insist on facts over feelings. When they hit you with guilt, counter with logic. My secret was the audit, your secret is your own unassailable truth. Use your competency, not your emotions, as your shield. Truth, like good code, is unbreakable. Third lesson: master the power of the delete key. You don't owe them a response. When they seek engagement, they seek fuel. Absolute non-response is the highest form of control. Terminating the contract is scary, but it's the only path to self-sovereignty. Fourth lesson: your chosen family is your real family. Loyalty is earned, not inherited. Invest your time, not your money, in people who validate your ethics and your success. Build a network of allies who operate on mutual respect, not conditional love. Fifth and final lesson: write your own ending. My revenge wasn't against the stones, it was for myself. Your ultimate victory is building a life so honest and successful that their toxic narrative becomes completely irrelevant. Code your future with maximum integrity.